Good evening, everybody. I am Alex with True 90's Nick, and welcome to True 90's NickSclusive. Tonight we are going to have David Sidoni. I'm really excited. I say I'm excited every single time, but it's true. Dang it! I'm really excited about this. David was in Roundhouse. He actually just sent me a message. If I don't, and see, how do I get to your live? Is what his question was. So if he doesn't join in here for a sec, I may have to back out for a sec and bring him back in. What up, Leon? So let's wait and see if he tunes in here. Hopefully he will. Let me see if I can invite him. Invite to join. I may have to share it with him, actually. David Sidoni. It would help if I spelled his name right, not Disoni. He might disown this interview. Alright, I don't see that. So, let me see if I can share this with him. Share to David. Boom. Sent. Not now. Ah! There he is. Mr. David. Adding him in. Hello, hello.
Howdy, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am awesome, thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, again, I've said this before, but officially in face to face, thank you so much for doing a part of this. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
Absolutely, no problem, no problem. Thank you.
All right. So this is David Sidoni from Roundhouse and a whole slew of other things, because you were involved in quite a bit of Nickelodeon stuff there for a while. So obviously most Nick fans know you from Roundhouse. How did you get to be cast in Roundhouse?
So Roundhouse was a really interesting casting because it was originally a show that was created by our creators, Benny Hester and Rita Sheffield and Buddy Sheffield, and they had been doing it with, I think, maybe around 8 of the original cast members, around town, pitching it and doing it live versions of it and things like that. And they said, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this as a show. And I had just come off of doing Newsies, which had, as we know, 4 prominent Roundhouse guys. And the funny story for me was Dominic Lucero and Ivan Dudinsky, they had been cast because they were already big dancers in town. I was the new kid on the block. That's where I met Dominic and I met Ivan and I met Mark David. And so I wasn't really in the first round of auditions. So they were already in, and Dominic was like, you guys got to see Sidoni. What are you doing? And so my agent called me to tell me that they were scraping the bottom of the barrel for male talent in Los Angeles. And as it turns out, Benny Hester, I had his albums in my house when I was a child. And I actually did one of his shows. So when I went to the audition, not one of his shows, but he worked on a big Christian musical that was around for a long time called High Tops. And I did it when I was like 17. So I went in, and that happened to be the song that I chose to sing. And then I did a flip off the wall, and that was it. Then I was in. So
Awesome. So what was it like filming the show?
it was the greatest thing I've ever. I mean, I got really lucky. I had a wonderful career. I got to dance with Michael Jackson and work with Gene Kelly and, be in a movie with Christian Bale. Not to mention all my Roundhouse guys. We went from job to job to job, and just, everything hit at the universe. I was 21 at the right time when all those things came out. I'm sure if I was younger or older, I would, I would have, gosh, I would have loved to have been in Singing in the Rain. Well, you know what? I also would have loved to have been in Glee, but I happened to get this perfect. So it was a dream job. It was like, I was a show choir kid in high school, soccer player first, and then a show choir kid. And because our show choir was like the musical Glee, or like the TV show Glee. It was like the football players, the cheerleaders. It was jeans and T-shirts. It wasn't like, you know, ball gowns and tuxedos. And it was fun. And that's what Roundhouse was. It was fun. You never knew. I mean, that was the whole thing. I don't think people, you know, it's kind of subtle, but the idea is it's a train roundhouse. You can go anywhere from there. You pull into the station and it turns and the train can go any direction, which we quite often did.
Now, the show, All That, there were some segments that were not live and some segments that were, but from the audience's perspective, it looked live all the time. Was Roundhouse the same way, or was it live all the way through?
Roundhouse was shot in real time. So we did one episode actually live. But the show was, we rehearsed all week, and then Friday night we did one show straight through, sent the audience out, sent them back in, and then did another show. And then we'd stick around for what were called pickups, what we affectionately called Mark Davids, because he's the funniest guy in the world, but gosh darn it if he can't get his lines straight.
Okay, so that leads into, was anything ever improv'd?
No, the improv happened during the week. The show was so tight because, you know, we had to move. There were flying set pieces and guitar cables and cardboard props, and everything was coming at you, and it was choreographed. Thursday from, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, we did camera blocking, which is you go to this spot and you do, and ran the show, but it was choreography. And it was, you go here, you go there, and then this moves out, then this comes in. So during rehearsals is where we throw in stuff. But honestly, I think maybe later on in life, we could have improv something, but at the ages that we were, the writers were so good that everything was written, set up, punchline, set up, punchline. The improvisation came in our movements, our characterization, and that happened during the week, you know, like before the cameras rolled.
Yes. Do you have any, I know it's a broad thing to pull from, but do you have any favorite memories from doing the show?
Oh, it's too many. I mean, there's the onstage stuff and there's offstage stuff. You know, for me, it was broken up into so many things. I sure as heck don't want to bore everybody, but you know, I could go on forever. It was, Orlando was the first season was shot in Orlando. And they seriously had like, it was part of the Universal Studios tour. So they had, like a glass, huge, like they'd walk by and people would sit, and then the person, and they're all looking down on us like, you know, lab rats. And then the tour guide says, "This is one of our new shows on Nickelodeon," and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, next door is, what was that? That 15, that dramedy?
Yes.
With friggin' Deadpool. So,
yes.
You know, but it was cool because, you know, we got to hang out with, you know, Melissa Joan Hart. You know, she and I became good friends. So that was all that fun Orlando stuff. Then we got back to LA, and I was close enough to the lot. I used to rollerblade to work. So I'd play street hockey and stuff at lunchtime. Me, Ivan, and Ivan's a good soccer player too. So me, Ivan, and Mark David, we bought a net during the World Cup, and there was a grass area out behind Seinfeld. So shooting the show, we'd go play soccer and hoops, and we taught everyone how to play soccer. It was pretty funny. But you know, the show itself, every show had a different memory. I look at the first season and I'm like, oh gosh, like we were just getting our feet really grounded into it. And
Yeah.
but you know, the seasons in LA, you know, I was kind of I was a weirdo. I love sports, and I was a show choir dork. So I remember the first time we sat when you know, Crystal sang a couple of her, you know, I Can Dream and all the stuff that just blew my mind. And Lisa Vale did an acoustic guitar thing that just rocked my world. You know, and all those things. I loved it as we all grew together and kind of figured out who our characters were. I loved it that, you know, my job was push the sets, because that was I was the only one that that could count on. They'd be like, Sid, go push that. 'Cause, and then, you know, but anytime I got to dance and play, but, you know, eventually they figured out that I had this goofy character, Dumb Kid, and I would just play with that. And the whole experience was, of all this, I mean, like I said, everything I've done, I was really excited about. But that show, if it looks like it's fun, it's because it was. I always say we're probably the worst actors in the world because none of us were acting. We're just having a great time.
Now, I know there's like the favorite to watch and a favorite this that you remember doing that. Do you have any favorite episodes?
Oh, gosh. It's hard because the jokes were set for teenagers, you know, but we were 23, 24, and 25, and I was nostalgic and goofy. So, you know, I liked the bully episode, which was like season 1, where I got to dress like Steven Tyler and sing the song about being a stage mother. That was fun because I had experienced many a stage mother in my life. You know, you have your experiences you love, but I love being a part of the live show, and I love being a part of the gang show, where we talked about gang violence, and I love being a part of the Wizard of Oz. I can't remember how many episodes it was, but, you know, just because I had memories of that. Because a long time ago, there were only 3 channels, and that came on, and there were no video stores, so you watched it every year.
Yep.
You know, so, yeah, those were probably, if I go back and looked at it, I liked Ivan's dance that we made up during the World Cup where we used soccer balls when he choreographed it. That was awesome.
Was there, and I know the whole show is fantastic, but was there any least favorite episodes?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there were some that, you know, it depends. If we didn't love the episode, we would just ramp up our video games in the back, or our soccer games, or our, you know, goofing off on the set. But, you know, there were some topics that didn't hit like we wanted to, or some, you know, I mean, truthfully, the only time I wasn't having a complete ball is like, it's like if you're in class and the teacher catches me, Mark, and Ivan in the back, you know, that was, if we had to, you know, calm down and be serious. Okay. But I love all the serious stuff too. So I always thought, I always wanted more of the dance bumpers that had the vocals inside.
Yeah.
Like there was one where the people sang and Al and C danced, and it was snick, snack, it's a roundhouse attack. The next act. I loved those. And so sometimes it'd be a show with just like jokes, song, jokes, and that was it. And I was like, come on, let's get those bumpers where we do stuff. But they were so hard to do because they were so collaborative.
Okay, so Roundhouse has kind of fallen into semi-obscurity because there's been no reruns or anything, so only diehard fans of the show really remember it. For those who are just learning about it, there was a lot of moving parts to the show. The set pieces moved, there was all kinds of dancing, and then not to mention the motorized chair. Did anybody ever get hurt during the show?
You know, that's a great question. Couple sprained ankles and stuff, but no. And we were nuts. I mean, me and Al and C flipping and jumping over things, and, you know, a couple bumps and bruises, but there was a large effort towards safety. It was kind of like Newsies. I mean, we had a workshop where we jumped around this giant warehouse for 3 months, and Rita and Buddy and Benny would let us jump around and go nuts in there. But then when it came down to safety time, it was like, okay, everyone's got to be careful. So I guess I would say no. I can proudly say that I never ran over anybody with the set cart. So, and no one ever, Mark David hit me multiple times, but.
Did you ever get to ride the chair?
Oh, all the time. John would pretend like he was the only one who was in it, but you know, when in between takes, Mickey was learning how to play drums. Everyone else was goofing around on the chair. I mean, that's every time. And after every show, that was all the kids and the parents and all anyone wanted to do. I mean, eventually we had to put it away because we should have charged money. It should have been like a rock. But oh yeah, but John got so freaking good at it. He could like turn that thing on a dime, and there were scenes where he had to be perfect. There was one scene where he backs up and turns around in the chair, and I come out of the chair dressed as him and do a bunch of flips and stuff. And then the chair goes back and I hide behind the chair, and it's obvious that I'm the stunt double. But I was like, John, we got to rehearse this. He's like, I got it, Sid.
That's awesome. I love it. How long, because there was a lot of dance moves, how long did it take to learn all those?
If you asked Alfred, he'd say, give me like till next Thursday. I'm good. He used to say it every week, like 500 more times. I got it. So we would go into the table read on Monday where we read through the script. Then James and the band, and that was the amazing thing. It was a live band every show. They would start playing, and then they'd get the cuts to the choreographer, whether it was Barry or Adam or Renee. I mean, most of the time it was Barry and Ivan. And they'd give it to them. And so Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'd rehearse. And then there'd be like, okay, these guys are doing vocals and these guys are working on the dances. And you know, hours. Ivan would get it in like 12 seconds. Mickey would get it in 11 seconds. And the rest of us would be like, one more time. So.
Let's see. Did you ever, once the show became more popular, did you ever get recognized in public?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for a while there, I mean, I still have a honeycomb box that my picture was on the back.
Yeah.
And, you know, we did some spreads for the teen mags. I used to get recognized, you know, malls, baseball games, whatever. But my true greatest story is when I was in third grade in Los Alamitos, California. The school I went to was a Catholic school, and there was only one teacher that did a play. So from first grade to eighth grade, there was only one play, and it was third grade. And my third grade teacher, Miss Finefield, she did Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I played Joseph. So must have been 93 when Roundhouse was in full effect. And in Los Angeles, the national tour of Joseph and the Amazing Color Dreamcoat comes to LA. And so, I always go see it because I have a big memory for it.
Yeah.
So I go, sitting right in front of me is Miss Finefield. And I start talking to her, and then the curtain goes up. We just realized it. So I'm like, okay, I'll just talk to her at intermission. So we walk to the aisle, start talking at intermission, and 3 girls come up to me and ask me for my autograph. And I go, hang on a second. This lady right here is the reason why I'm on Roundhouse. She started the whole thing. So it was pretty awesome. And then after that, the transition into all the other stuff I did on Nickelodeon, when it was just me and I said my name, then that's when people really started to go. And it's funny, you're on Roundhouse and you're like, you're the guy on that show with the chair. And then I do my own show, and they're like, "You're the guy on Nickelodeon that like interviews people." Yup. Okay.
Did you have, or do you have, a favorite song that was on Roundhouse?
You Better Work. It's a bumper. You better work. I loved it because it had the horns. That was my favorite. The Lisa Vale song with the guitar, just her and Marty. Give you my heart to break. That was my favorite. And Crystal stuff. I mean, Crystal's. I liked the songs I got to do. I liked a lot of the other solos. You know, the gospel last season, we brought in these just wailing singers, and they were incredible. But I'm a sucker for any like Crystal doing "I Can Dream" and those first couple songs. But there were so, gosh, I have to go back and really listen to everything. I love You Better Work though, and there was another one I can't remember it off the top of my head. I don't know. Somebody send me a mixtape.
You may have already answered this subvertently, but subvertently, that's not a word. But
I'm
who was
going with it. I'm going with it. We made up all kinds of crap on Roundhouse.
who was the best dancer?
It's tough. Ivan was one of the greatest hip hop dancers I've ever worked with. Brian Anthony was an insane technician. Sean Munoz was an old school b-boy. Al and C were their own thing. They were, just a killer duo. Mickey Duran, I said it when I first saw her before Roundhouse. She's got funk in her bones. She was the funkiest dancer I had ever seen in my life. So, and then, and then you take it all to another level, and that's Dominic, who because the guy had been on tour for a year and a half with Michael Jackson. He was the most naturally gifted performer I'd ever seen, and he had a maturity that I say I learned, but if you watch the tapes, apparently I didn't, because my face was just spazzing out. Dominic could do the hardest dance move in the world and look so cool. He just had it. And I would be like, and I'm like, I learned so much from you. And he's like, yeah, when are you gonna show me, dude? So I was in awe. It was like a good 8.5 around a whole bunch of 10s,
Did you keep anything from the set?
Yes, I sure as heck did. I just moved, and my wife is like, "What the hell is this?" And the gingerbread man that was the X-ray of the gingerbread man that was in my stomach in the Christmas episode. I was holding. That was the one thing I wanted. But I was really good friends with the prop department. So, and I also have the two, and this is another thing we just talked about, because we just moved, and my kids are like, why do you have this? Because my kids are 15 and 11 now. I have two giant size, full length poster boards of me when I got run over by the Mack truck in the first 2 episodes. And they've been sitting in my garage. They have scared members of my family going to get something from the fridge numerous times. They're freaky. And so those and the X-ray was because something about, like, I think Mark says to me, would you eat the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man? And I go, I don't know. He looks good. And so I wanted, but the prop guys, they took good care of me. They were fun.
Do you still keep in contact with any of the cast members?
Yeah, it's been interesting. A lot of us have gone our separate ways. It's been a long, long time. I took my family to go see John Crane in a show. He did a show at I think the Groundlings or something like that. And I was like, guys, let's go see because I show the kids the old tapes. Every once in a while through Facebook and whatever, I'll see what's going on with Julene and Sean Daywalt and Natalie Nucci, who's doing all kinds of musical theater, because she and I always had a love for that, so that was fun. Amy Ehrlich, who came in the second or third season, she's so funny because she just wants to dance in waterfalls and be happy. She's a hippie in a 21st century gal. So I'll touch base with her. I think I went to DC and saw her in Fame. But I still talk to Barry, our choreographer. I still talk to Ivan, and Mark David and I have stayed in touch the whole time. He and I became real good friends on that show.
Now, on a different tone, because I've had several who have asked, and you almost can't talk about Roundhouse without talking about the passing of Dom.
Yeah.
What was your experience with all that?
So Dom and I met on Newsies, and he had just come off of the Michael Jackson tour. And for those of you out there who don't know, there is nothing now that is the same popularity that Michael Jackson was. His album Thriller was the biggest selling album of all time. So imagine K-pop plus, the cowboy guy plus your biggest country star plus whoever, and slam them all together, and that's like 1/5 of Michael's popularity. So the thing he was doing after that was gigantic, and they only cast 4 people. And growing up south of Los Angeles in Orange County, I was in a song and dance group down there. It's called the Young Americans. And Dominic was part of it. And people would say, oh, you guys would get along. And then we just never met. And then we met on Newsies. And we were both the guys who on the weekends, instead of going out and doing the Hollywood LA thing, Dom and I would pack our laundry up together and go down and hang out with our families. So we bonded immediately as LA people who still went down and were real big with our families north, because everyone's from all over the world and they come to LA to be stars, and we just drove up the freeway. And Dom had just been on the road for a year and a half playing to 100,000 people in stadiums. So we became really good friends, and I was with him when we were in Orlando, and Michael Jackson called the house and asked him not to do Roundhouse because he wanted him to go on the next tour with him, his Dangerous tour. And I was there when Dominic and we had lots of conversations. And Dom said, I want to do something for me. And Michael was really cool about that. And that's why when you watch the first season, you see Dominic was prominently showcased. And they wrote a lot of episodes around him because he was so just gloriously talented. And before we went there, I knew that there was something going on. He told me, we don't really know, I'm sick. And he did the whole season. We were roommates in Orlando. And still just, continuing this incredible, great friendship. And then we came home and things just took a huge turn. And the whole cast was obviously supportive of him. And it was one of those just insane things. You think about, in a lot of ways, he was the glue of that first season, and he was the dude that, really had, he was just such a professional, and we were a bunch of adolescents, even if we weren't technically that age. He was a professional, and he was funny and can goof off, but it was incredible to be around him. And so it really blew us all out of the water, and it was really, really hard. And it was a big loss for the world. His talent was just unbelievable. I mean, he went from a kid in Orange County to dancing, featured in Paula Abdul's videos, when a Paula Abdul video was bigger than, the biggest viral YouTuber or TikToker. That was it. And he was incredible. I've never learned more from just being around somebody than him. And it sucked. It sucked. Crystal's sang Amazing Grace at the gravesite. And it's one of those moments that that I'll never forget. But his presence was there, and that's why you always saw his. He was. They rightfully kept him on the credits the whole time because whether he was there or not, he was always part of the show.
That's awesome, and it is very sad. As a Nickelodeon fan, it was the first time that I'm sure others have realized that even though you're seeing them on TV all the time and they're characters, and then to see this has happened, it brings a level of reality to the audience. So that was very awakening for a lot of fans. But
yeah, it was. There's a lot of, I guess Nickelodeon does a really good job of having the shows be pure entertainment. And they've done a really good job. All their child stars has good heads on their shoulders, and many of them have gone on to amazing success. And it was really interesting to be part of something where the lines got blurred between reality and there were lots of people asking questions all the time, and we just, out of respect to him and what was going on, because we didn't know what was going to happen, we just pushed forward, and he was always there and always supportive.
Now, in the book Slimed, there were some interviews with some of the creators, and they did say that near the end of the run, they were working on a Roundhouse album just before it was canceled. What can you add to that? Was there any truth to that?
Yeah, at this point right now, I don't care. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go back and no one's going to hire my 51-year-old butt to get up and do anything anymore. There were a ton of plans, and like everything in Hollywood, it comes down to rights, and there's a lot of stuff that I don't know or understand about the music business, but there were plans for tours, live singing and dancing tours, and an album, and it was all in the works and going to go. And for whatever reason, the creators of Nickelodeon, or the creators of Roundhouse and Nickelodeon, couldn't come together. And it happens all the time. It happened there was a big show, part of SNCC, called Ren and Stimpy, and that got so giant. And then they had it happens in every business where the label, whether it's the record label or the movie studio, Taylor Swift decides to take all her albums back and release them as the exact same song, just Taylor's version. And, so that you download that one and she gets 99 cents, not the record label. Because I don't know if she sued to get her masters back or something. So we wanted to do everything. The cast wanted to do everything. The Roundhouse creators wanted to do everything. And the entity, whether it be Disney, Viacom, Warner Brothers, in this case, Viacom and Nickelodeon, they just said, we own you. So, that's the thing. They're running around town trying to sell this show. Nickelodeon says, we'll put your show on the air, but here's the catch. We own it now. So it got to the point that the creators, Benny was so good with the music, and our band was the sickest musicians. I mean, what the hell they were doing with us jumping around like idiots. They must have just gone home and looked at their family and gone, what have I done with my life? Because they played with real artists, and then they came and watched us play with RC cars in between takes. And that, the music part of it, no one was willing to settle, so it couldn't get done. So I got a videotape somewhere. I got to figure out how to transfer the sound as high quality as I can.
Now, I know that you don't have the whole perspective of why it's fallen into obscurity, but do you think that maybe some of the heavy themes or the adult themes of the shows is probably one of the reasons that they haven't re-aired the show on the way the format's at now?
Yeah, I think a lot of things fell into it. I think again, just that normal Hollywood stuff. Nickelodeon got and gets everything from all that. And, you know, Clarissa and those are their entities. Roundhouse was Buddy Bennett and Rita's thing. And so, you know, there was just a rights issue. And I think Nick at some point said, this is cool, but let's make our own thing that's a little more polished. I mean, the lighting, all that's a great show, but it was very much more towards what they were going for. I think Snick was their idea, and then suddenly they kind of looked around and went, Ren and Stimpy, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and Roundhouse? Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not, you know, MTV Junior. And they pulled everything back. And so, yeah, I don't, you know, it's a shame because I would love, but I think in the long run, whatever they morphed their brand into, they weren't necessarily like, this is Nickelodeon. You know, I can't see him going, we're going back to 90's Nick and air 10 Ren and Stimpy's in a row.
Yeah.
Everyone would be like, this is Nickelodeon. And a bunch of new parents who never knew about that stuff would hate the station. So.
Yeah. Okay, so after Roundhouse, I remember seeing you more from various different projects on Nickelodeon, and because we were just saying how Roundhouse has kind of fallen into obscurity, but there was one show in particular I really liked as a kid, but nobody remembers. Could you describe what Being the Sound of Something New was?
Being the Sound of Something New was the dopest show on TV is what it was. And I didn't have jack to do with it. It was all them. It was Entertainment Tonight for kids. They gave me a camera and they said, go. And we did whatever we wanted and it was awesome. The director was a guy named Stacy Peralta. I grew up in Southern California. Stacy Peralta is of Palo Peralta, the skateboarding brand. If you don't know who that is, then you don't realize Stacy Peralta is a god. And I walked in and he was the chillest, most casual dude, and he took that kind of skateboarding fast camera work and was parlaying it into a career. And we just goofed off, and it was Entertainment Tonight for kids. And the reason why no one knows about it is because that show was not, here's the word, evergreen. It was so topical, it could only air once and make sense. When we're talking about this movie that's coming out, when we're talking now, kids networks don't get the ratings to air Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, Buzz Media Hollywood, whatever, like all the other channels do at 7 or 7:30. So it was a great show, and there was another one called You to You on the Road, directed by a different guy, and then those shows, they were awesome. They just, in the long run, cost too much money to only be able to air once. You know, you could re-air all that. You have to remember, their audience grows up, and then a whole new audience comes in. So, you know, I think if they really wanted to figure it out, they try to do a show that, but you can't. You know, you can't do that on television. You do Hey Dude, you do whatever. It's gonna have an era to it, even if it's just the people's hairstyles. You know what I mean? But they want to find something they can shoot and then rerun and rerun and rerun. But Sound of Something New was awesome. Silly name, but I still love it.
And then also you did the pre-show for one of the Kids' Choice Awards.
Yeah.
And you also were a part of the Kids Pick the President.
Yes, that was me and Melissa Joan Hart. It felt like I did anything they had something going on. David, go to Washington, D.C., and you and Rosie O'Donnell are doing Stand for Children or something. And it was, anytime there was a red carpet or something, they would send me, because basically they knew I could look like a 16 or 17-year-old in my vibe and my energy, but that I could be live and know what to say and know how to interview people, know how to answer questions short and get the short answers back. And that was the weird transition from Roundhouse. They sent me out on a couple things to do some McDonald's prize winning things.
Yeah.
And we did live in between commercials, and they dropped slime on the people. And that's when they went, oh, this guy can talk. And suddenly it was every week it'd be me and a different cast member from Roundhouse. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, Sidoni, here's your show. And then, you know, red carpet, got to interview everybody in the world, all-star basketball games. That was a big one we did. But all those live events they had me do for a while, you know, you have a reel, like a highlight tape of yourself. One of the Kids' Choice Awards back in the day, it was Whitney Houston going, next up, Dave Sidoni. So that's the beginning of my reel. It was Whitney Houston introducing me, and then it cuts to all my stuff. But it was awesome. I got to travel, and you know, and sometimes it was totally great. We had it all hooked up, and sometimes it was like the producers were more excited about it than I was, and they were all young dudes. And like we went to the Super Bowl, we basically did guerrilla filming. We had passes that maybe got us to tier 1, and we just snuck into tier 3, 4, and 5 and on the field and just took our little handheld camera. They didn't realize we were shooting a TV show at that time because the cameras had just gotten small enough. So we just ran around and shot a whole TV show at the Super Bowl before we got kicked out. So.
Oh, man. Now, later you went and did Unfabulous on Nickelodeon. What are some of the differences that you've noticed between when you did Roundhouse to the 2004 Unfabulous?
Little story about Unfabulous. I'm getting ready to get married, and I get a call from my agent, says, hey, Lisa wants to talk to you. She knows you from Roundhouse. One of the girls who was like, I don't even remember her role, you know, assistant production manager, assistant director or something. She's directing the show called Unfabulous. She's the director. There's this little part for a guy on TV acting like a TV host. She's seen me on Nickelodeon hosting TV shows, and she's like, Sidoni! So the day of my rehearsal dinner, I said, I'll do it just for you. I was getting married 3 hours south of LA, and I went to the set at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, I have to be first. I have a 5 o'clock rehearsal dinner for my wedding. At least do it. She kept adjusting things and moving things around. I think I got out of there at like 2. It was nuts. But it was, you know, I done other there's nothing like Roundhouse. It was a set. You go into a set, you go into makeup, and you sit down. The walls are all fake and plastic. You go in there, you sit down, and wherever you are, and then the camera's right here, and the people are right there, and the only thing that's real is this like 6 feet right here. Roundhouse, you're on a Broadway stage, and there's a live band behind you, and everything's real. There's nothing like it. I've done, you know, I did an episode of 90210 with another dancer, which was really weird. And we were throwing water balloons, and then they kicked us out for throwing water balloons. So we had to act like we were walking out of the room, but we walked like this far, and then we're out of range. And that's where we had to go. And we couldn't go anywhere because there were lights and cameras and stuff like that. So we're like this, and they're full on making out right here. And we're just like, you know, just off camera while they're making out, cut. And then we're like, okay, can we move now? So that's what, you know, that show was like. It was a TV show. You go in, you sit down, you're talking to no one. There's no audience. Roundhouse hasn't had an audience, except when we had to do pickups afterwards because Mark David messed up his lines.
All right, final Roundhouse question. I've seen a lot of Nick fans compare Roundhouse to In Living Color. Would you say that's a fair comparison for like a kid's version of In Living Color?
Considering the fact that our head writer was the head writer of In Living Color, yes. So there's a very good reason you see that. And Living Color was a format that broke out that was, you know, maybe similar to Saturday Night Live in some capacity. But the Fly Girls were, I mean, Roundhouse is 100% in Living Color for teenagers. That was the goal. We were like, there was a guy, oh, I forget his last name, and I really should remember, Herb somebody or other, who was in charge of Nickelodeon back then.
Yes.
All the people at the top always said, we at Nick don't talk down to kids. Yet, and I believe them, they really meant it. But some of the shows still had that slant that kind of, it's just, you can't help it, you know? You're getting slime thrown on you, or you're saying these really cheesy lines, but that was the thing. We never wanted to do that. And in Living Color talked up to the people, and although it was slapstick and big, it still had, you know, it had an intellect to it and a playfulness. And it was 100%. That's how I would describe it to people. People say, what is it? And I'd say, it's in Living Color, but we're the Fly Girls.
So now on Instagram, I was going through trying to find various Nickelodeon celebrities, and I found you. And then, of course, in giant letters, that you're now into real estate. And I was, oh, wow, that's a shift. I wasn't expecting that. What motivated that to career change?
You know, everybody went through, while we were doing Roundhouse, everybody went through where your next steps were going to be. You know, I don't know what everyone's done. You know, Julene was in Avatar, like the biggest movie of all time. You know, like I said, I know Natalie got back to her musical theater roots in a lot of ways, and she's exploded and well on that. But while we were doing Roundhouse, I remember Ivan was like, I'm going to go, he was always working with his camera. On Newsies, he was always working with his camera. And he either started or he signed up for film school, I believe UCLA, while we were doing Roundhouse. And I was like, cool. And now me and my kids watch these shows on TV, and boop, there's Ivan's name. He's directing it. You know, Ivan's a huge director now, but that was where he wanted to go. Yeah. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I thought I was going to go to Broadway when I was 21, and instead Broadway came to me, and I'm in a movie musical, which back in 91, the last one was what, Grease? You know, years before that. I mean, it was a huge, well before musicals were popping up in the theaters. And then I went, okay, now I've done that. Now I'm going to get ready and go do Broadway. And then I got a dance agent during Newsies, and then I started doing dance commercials. Then I danced with Michael Jackson, and thought, well, I'm not going to stop this. And then Roundhouse. And then in between Roundhouse, I was still auditioning and still training. And then Nickelodeon said, you talk, dude, go talk. And after Roundhouse, I had a hosting agent. And I didn't even know they existed, man. And so I was auditioning for every show in the world. The very first season of American Idol, I got down to the very end to be the co-host with Ryan Seacrest. And which is fine, because the dude got fired anyway. You know, and they had no idea. When they were auditioning the show, they were hiring Seacrest and a snarky guy. They thought the whole show was going to be the two hosts ragging on the kids. And then all of a sudden the kids became the stars. So they kicked out the snarky guy and just let Seacrest be a traffic cop, and the kids were the star of the show. So as I kept doing that, there was still that part of me, because like I said, Dominic and I were really close, and I always wanted to have kids and have a family and live in Orange County. And while I was doing some of my last hosting shows, I started getting into investing in real estate. And I was thinking, okay, this can be something I could do to make some money, because you have to be, you know, I have friends who've hosted TV shows, and in between their hosting TV shows, they're struggling. They don't know what they're doing. You have to be Mario Lopez, Ryan Seacrest, or, you know, Carson Daly. And do you want to aspire to be Carson Daly? Guy's got more money than God, but everybody rags on him, you know? And it's like, I'm a performer. And so I was teaching and doing the real estate investing. And then I was doing this show on Disney Channel called Mad Libs. And it was a kids game show where they throw gunk on you. And I'm asking all the questions. And you've got like 7 minutes between shows because it was produced by Dick Clark, who's a Hollywood legend. And I remember one day I wasn't feeling good, and in between shows in the 7 minutes, I'm standing there like a mannequin. They're tearing my clothes off, putting on a new microphone, fixing my makeup, fixing my hair, reading me questions to make sure I say everything correctly because I got 7 minutes because Dick Clark likes to make money. He shoots his shows fast. And he comes in, and how you doing? I said, I'm not doing very well, Mr. Clark, because I wasn't feeling great. He's all, okay, everybody out. And I was like, and he basically just said to me, I can fire anybody out there right now. The only person I can't fire is you. And it's not because you're talented. You're just the face. So when you're the face, you're always here and you're always feeling fantastic and you need to smile more when you're on camera. And that's all he said to me, and he left. And at that moment, I started thinking about, I think I was 28, and I started thinking about wanting to have kids and wanting to have a family. And unless you're the top 1%, you always have to audition. And God bless the people who did it. Like I said, Roundhouse, there were a bunch of 10s and I was an 8. And I always knew it. I was lucky. I was a very good, not great singer. I was a very good dancer, pretty rhythmic for a white boy, but not Ivan, not Mickey. And I was, a decent enough actor with a sense of humor, but I was mostly just a big performer. And that can only take you so far. And so I said, all right, I'm going to do it. And I went to New York. And as soon as I got there, the show I wanted to audition for closed. And I had a couple Nickelodeon jobs that kept me afloat, but everything I auditioned for, I didn't get. And then I just went, I'm too old. I'm moving back home. So I moved back home. And now the teacher side of me, I help first-time home buyers. I know a bunch of people at Disneyland. So I've been helping them buy their first house almost in the same way I teach musical theater. It's half motivational and inspiration and half technique and real teaching. And then at the end, we all get to smile and have a good time.
That's awesome. All right, so for those who were unaware that you're a real estate agent now, because yes, you sell real estate, but also you're doing a podcast.
Yeah, that's I did the whole, career guy, which is hysterical. I still got, my kids just laugh, The PTA loves me and my wife. She's a choreographer. So anytime there's something going down, it's dress the two dorks up and let us run the show. And none of them know who I am. None of them, which is awesome. So I was doing all that, having a good time, and then I realized, and my wife goes, dude, you got to do more with first-time home buyers. And I was like, all right, cool. So I started a podcast to help them, and now I help first-time home buyers all across the country. Give them advice, give them the tips, show them what to do because they need help. Even help some Roundhouse people. Actually, one of my favorite Roundhouse fans just closed on a house last week.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, we've kept in touch over the years. She's my gal, and just ran, so we're always, anytime I do anything on social media, all my Roundhouse fans are like, what is this? So, but it's not like, it's like Roundhouse. I don't do anything normal. I put up a TikTok the other day where I slapped my butt. So, to sell houses. So, to follow me on TikTok and watch me slap my butt.
Do you get any clients who recognize who you are?
No, but they sure as heck all Google me as soon as it starts. 15 years I've been in another business, and I cannot get my business page to the top of Google. You Google me, and they're all like, who the heck is this guy? So I embrace it. I had a Disneyland client who was a circus performer. So when we were selling her house, we shot a video of it, and I did a backflip, and she was walking on her hands. You know, it's like, whatever. I have such a good time with it. But when people Google, they're like, "Who are you, man?" I'm like, I don't know. Scroll down. Get to the one that says davidsidoni.com. Not.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's been a long time though, so the fan pages are chilling out a little bit. But you know, it's pretty funny because some of the girls were nuts back in the day with their fan fiction and goofy. Oh my God, man. And pictures and memes. So yeah, it was being a part of SNCC was you know, at the time we were well pre-internet. It was post MTV, pre-internet. And it's an era that a lot of people, like I said, I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be 20, 21, 22, 23 in 89, 90, 91, 92. It was, you know, that was when I was 19. I was born in 70. So that was it, man. And there was so much cool stuff going on. And SNCC was just this experiment. And, you know, we got to play. And then I never had any idea that I was going to turn into this, you know, television host. I the whole time I was on Nickelodeon, I traveled with a pillow. And every time I traveled from New York or from LA to New York to do Nickelodeon stuff, I was, you know, in the business class, you know, star guy in my like pajama pants and a t-shirt and a big old Snoopy and Linus pillow. I used to sit next to the business guys drinking scotch, and they would always look at me like I was in the wrong seat. And I was like, nope. And now I'd be like, Google me, bro. But
all right, well, last question. Pretty much just encompassing Nickelodeon. What is probably, and I have a guess, but still, what is probably your most memorable experience at working with Nickelodeon?
I mean, the real answer, for me, it was Roundhouse. Roundhouse was the vehicle that brought me everything else. Roundhouse could never take anything away. One of the lucky things that I got out of my Roundhouse experience was that I got a large Nickelodeon experience. I got to be part of the Big Help with Mike O'Malley, you know,
yes.
And we just constantly, I got entrusted. They would send me and a camera person to go out and just make something happen. And there was such an effort in taking care of the planet, in making the kids' voices be heard. At the time, I wasn't a dad, not even close. But it really felt like, you know, Roundhouse was such a gift. Roundhouse was, I mean, they called it Rebel Entertainment. We were the rebels. That was us, man, you know? But then when I got to work with the big entity that was Nick, besides just putting out good television, like they took their power and they gave it to good. With the Big Help and the recycling and the Kids Pick the President, they made sure that the kids, because I did other shows that were, you know, whether it was Wheel of Fortune or Mad Libs, and they were kids shows, but it was just, let's entertain. Nickelodeon had this bigger power, and they used it for good. It was pretty darn cool.
That's awesome. Well, for anybody who is going to be a first-time home buyer, where can they follow you at?
Oh my God, that's what's so scary. Anyone who's a 90s Nick fan is old enough now that they probably hate their rent. So if you think your rent sucks,
I'm actually in the middle of getting a house at the moment, so it was very fortuitous that I found. It's like, oh, this is some great stuff.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah, it's been really fun for me. The whole story is when my light bulb went on for the first time home buyers. When I was 21 and I got Newsies, I rented from 1991 to 1998. In the 90s, I spent $104,000 in rent. Now that's 90s dollars. That's like $300K today.
Yeah.
I would have had to put $5,000 down, and I could have lived in a condo I owned that was nicer than every single apartment I rented during that time. But nobody told me. So, you know, when I started the podcast, I'm like, okay, here's 48-year-old me going back and telling everybody in the world who will listen what I would have told 21-year-old David. So How to Buy a Home podcast, howtobuyahome.com or davidsidoni.com. And it doesn't matter if you're 5 years out. If you're in your 20s and you're renting, start a plan today, because when I moved back to Orange County when I was 28 years old, I got a $1,500 deposit back. The big TV star. That's all I had. If I bought a house for like this much down when I got a movie, the Newsies, I would have moved back home with like $500,000 at 28. Just by doing nothing more than paying my rent. So I'm like, okay, not everyone needs $500,000 from 21 to 28. Not everyone's on TV and making the money that I was making or paying the rent for all my roommates. And Mark David, he didn't have a fridge for a while. He was on a TV show and didn't own a fridge, Mark David. Everybody find him on Instagram and ask him where his fridge is.
That's great.
So I want everyone in the world to, not only was he renting the back of some old lady's house while he was on television, I want everyone in the world to stop renting, have your own fridge, and have a house so you can be better than Mark David.
That's great. This might be the first interview I've had where I've actually cried from laughing so hard. That's awesome.
My job, baby.
That's hysterical. All right. And as I've said before, David, thank you so very, very much for all of this. This was fantastic. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad you're keeping the nostalgia alive. It's awesome. It's funny to me because we were all going back to the 80s. And now there's this, because the average viewer was about 10 years younger than us when we were doing Roundhouse. Mickey was like 18. The rest of us were, 20 to 24. But the average viewer was 14, and we were talking about 14-year-old stuff. So it's so crazy that all of a sudden I'm seeing this big 90s thing. And for us, it was like, oh, yeah, when I was 20 in LA, we were going to 70s skate-arounds. And then, when I was 30-something, that was when all the 80s stuff came back. And now the 90s stuff's coming back, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that was us. So it's kind of cool.
Well, thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who submitted some questions. There were some great questions. And again,
DM
thank
me
you
the questions. I'll answer them. I don't care. DM them. Find me.
So follow him on Instagram. Check out his podcast. Check out his TikTok. You'll see some things there that
I just started on the TikTok. Although there is choreography on the TikTok. So I do dance. I even got a cool camera thing that there's 3 of me dancing in some of them. It is no Roundhouse bumper. Do not expect anything.
All right. Thank you so much, David. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Again, thank you.
You're the best, man. Thank you so much.
Have a good one, guys.